All right, now we got another segment of True or False this week. We're going to get into 5 different topics and debate if they are true or false. All right, first things first, we're going to get right into a little bit of a debate about Kansas City Chiefs running backs. This week I've seen a lot of push for Jamal Charles to be a Hall of Famer from Chiefs Kingdom on Twitter. So basically the statement is Jamal Charles is a Hall of Famer. True or false?
False. Simply because he didn't play long enough. And not that he isn't a good running back and shouldn't be considered one of the better running backs. He just didn't play long enough to be considered one of the greatest of all time. I know he had that record against Jim Brown for most yards per carry. And that's great in his own right, but when he's healthy, and if he stays healthy like that, he's probably top 3 all time. But since he got injured twice and it just kind of ruined his career, and ever since then he wasn't as good. I know injuries, especially to running backs like the ACL and Achilles, are basically death sentences for their career. But he just wasn't the same guy. And if he stays healthy for 2 or 3 more years, you can put him in that conversation. But ever since those injuries, you can't really put him in that conversation from that aspect.
I mean, I think that's fair. I personally don't think he's a Hall of Famer.
Nah.
I say false.
Nah, Canton Hall of Fame? Nah, but Ring of Honor, yeah, he'll definitely.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, definitely a Chiefs Hall of Famer, I would say.
But yeah.
Randy,
False.
what you got? True or false?
I'm gonna go false. It saddens me to say that because Jamal Charles is the Chiefs' best running back of all time. Maybe not the favorite. Priest Holmes is my favorite. But as far as the best Chiefs running back of all time, Jamal Charles is that.
Yeah, we were having a little bit of a debate before we started recording, and after thinking about Matt Castle being his quarterback, I kind of agree with that. This man had shit for a quarterback, and I mean, he was the only person on offense. At the end of the day, really, I mean, I guess if you want to count Dwayne Bowe, but...
Well, I mean, if we're going to compare quarterbacks towards the middle of Larry Johnson's Chiefs career, he didn't really have that great of quarterbacks either.
That's true.
So if you want to put quarterbacks in the conversation, then Larry Johnson is next to Jamal Charles, which I don't think is true. Larry Johnson is probably...
Also debatable, though, because Larry Johnson spent a lot of time with Priest Holmes being his...
Well, he did, but he also took over at some point.
That's true. That's very true.
And then he made his own path. And then
Yeah.
he got paid and decided he didn't like to get hit anymore and got tackled every half yard and a half.
He quit after he
Yeah.
got paid, plain and simple. But
I mean, I don't know. I think Priest Holmes is number 1. I just
for the Chiefs,
for
all
the
time.
Chiefs all
Yeah.
time, yeah. And I was reading something today on it was like the NFL Snapchat, and they put him at like number 6 all time for best undrafted player.
Priest.
Yeah, Priest.
Oh, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
he's one of the best undrafted players of all time, I would say.
So it's hard to put him under Jamal Charles. But I mean, really though, or if we're going to get in perspective here, if Kareem Hunt didn't do what he got caught in the video, he's probably taking over all 3 of those spots at some point.
That is a fact for me. I completely agree.
It's kind of hard to put those 3 guys in that order because Kareem Hunt is going to take over all those spots if that video doesn't surface.
All right.
So is Priest Holmes a Hall of Famer?
No.
Not
he
yet.
is on
He's a
the,
Chiefs-
Yeah, he's a
yeah,
Chiefs
Chiefs
Hall of
famer.
Famer and on the Ring of Fame at Arrowhead.
So not a Hall of Famer.
But he's not a Hall of Famer.
Okay, that's all I needed to know.
And I mean, really, when you look at both of them side by side, Priest Holmes, you know what? I didn't think about this until I just looked it up. Priest Holmes has a ring.
Yeah, for the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In 2000 as
And
well.
8,000 rushing yards. Only 1,000
He
more
has more rushing yards than Jamal Charles. Jamal Charles has 7,000.
for the Chiefs. I didn't see how many he had total, but
7,000.
7,000?
Yeah, 7,000 something.
on par. Yeah.
So, I mean, Priest Holmes has the better numbers than when you...
How
take
many more
into-
years did Priest Holmes play than Jamal Charles, though.
When you take into account the, I'll get to that in just a second. When you take into account the Pro Bowls, it's 3 for Holmes, 4 for Charles, and then Jamal Charles led the NFL in rushing touchdowns. I want to say 2013, and Priest Holmes led the NFL in rushing touchdowns 2002, 2003, as well as leading the NFL in rushing yards in 2001. He played Priest Holmes did play 11 seasons compared to 11 seasons. So we're looking at the exact same time frame, and both with severe injuries that kept them out of game time. So I think at the end of the day, after looking at the numbers,
Priest Holmes did more.
Priest Holmes did do more, yeah.
So I mean, it's all about who you like for that from that aspect. If you don't put in the stats,
That is kind of true.
I mean, they're two different runners, that's for sure, and two different athletes in general. Because Priest Holmes was, I think, a better out of the backfield catcher than Jamal Charles was.
I think the other way.
No?
I don't know.
Really?
But also, you got to think about it though, because at the same time, like they both were in somewhat of the same system. Because when you look when Priest Holmes came, I mean, look at the offensive line he had in front of him. Trent Green, that was more of a short route thrower, and they loved the screen. That was like the number one play that the Chiefs ran around that time. So it's debatable. It is very debatable between both of them who is. But at the end of the day, I kind of disagree with what you're saying. I think they're almost the same back. And then, not to mention, they both come from Texas.
Same back in what regards? Because I
Their
think Priest,
whole play style, I think.
I think Priest was way more physical.
Yeah, Jamal Charles.
Way
That
more
is true.
physical.
That is true. But just the way that they got things done, I think that they're about the same.
Well,
About the same
I think
back.
I think it goes back to what you made. Their game plan was similar,
Right.
so I think that's why you would look at them as similar running backs,
Right.
because they played the same way.
A lot of screenplay.
Right.
A
Well,
lot
But
of,
I think Charles came in an era too early.
Yeah, he did.
I think
Oh,
if he
for
came
sure.
in this era, because he basically laid the blueprint for Alvin Kamara.
Yeah,
If we're
Yeah.
being totally honest.
Yeah.
yeah, he did. And I mean, he didn't have the tight ends like Travis Kelce or Tony Gonzalez. Priest Holmes had Tony Gonzalez,
Right.
but he was stuck in that era where their tight end was Tony Moyaki.
Moyaki, and he barely stayed on the field.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is true.
and the quarterbacks for Jamal Charles were who? Matt
But
Castle.
even then, back to what you said about the Alvin Kamara thing. I mean, Priest Holmes was doing that before,
Yeah,
What's that?
catching the ball and coming out of the backfield catching the football.
He was, but was it to the level that Jamal Charles was doing it?
Yeah.
I don't.
The
Just-
Chiefs
just-
were known for the screenplay. Like
I understand, but I'm just from a skill perspective. I think Jamal Charles had more of receiving skill than Priest Holmes did.
I think you're right out in space and route running wise, because I mean Priest Holmes at the end of the day was the screenplay that was going to kill you. He wasn't going to go out and run a 15-yard route or something like that. So I do kind of agree with you there, but at the same time I think that Priest laid the blueprint for Jamal Charles.
Here for Kansas City.
I think in general, because at the end of the day, I mean, I think the Chiefs are a big part of why the screenplay was as big as it was. I mean, the Chiefs were a big part of that and a big part of making, teams realize, shit, I can just have my running back curl out to the side and toss it to him and have the O-line go block for him and it be a pass. I mean,
But I think he lasted longer because of his physical nature. Because he was more of a physical back than Jamal Charles. Like I said, I think Charles just came in an era too early, and it cost him years of his career.
yeah, that's true. And not to mention, in that time period, that's really all the Chiefs had.
Yeah.
Hand the ball off to Jamal Charles. I mean, you had a lot of, like you said, you had Tony Gonzalez with Priest Holmes. You had that great offensive line to protect Trent Green. You had good role players that, were going to catch the ball when they needed to. In guys like Eddie Kennison, and you had a deep threat in Dante Hall.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, it's fairly similar because I did this on a podcast last year before the season started this year. It's very similar to the 03 offense that what is now.
yeah,
When Kareem Hunt was there. It's obviously a little different now, but it's still very similar. The amount of points they can score and the amount of which they can do it and how quickly they can do it. It's very similar. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is a way better quarterback than Trent Green was, but it's still very similar.
That's
So we got all falses for Jamal Charles.
being
false,
a Hall of
yeah.
Famer.
Yeah.
and Hall of Fame.
Clean across the board.
Okay. Moving on to Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods winning the Masters is the biggest moment of 2019 if he were to win the Masters.
Would it be the biggest sports moment?
Yeah, of 2019.
I'm gonna go with true. I can't think of a scenario from any only other scenario I could think of, and I'm not sure. Only other scenario I can think of is if the Browns were to go win the Super Bowl.
Or if the
Yeah.
Warriors somehow get beat this year.
I don't even think that though, because I think a lot of people think they're gonna get beat.
Well, you can think they're going to get beat, but will they get beat? Is the better question.
When's the last time Tiger won the Masters?
2008.
Damn. 11 years?
Yeah, that's an 11-year.
Yeah.
Not to mention how many people root for Tiger. That makes up a good 90% of golf fans. Or the casual golf watcher. Is more than likely 90% you're probably going to be rooting for Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
I can't think of any scenario that would trump Tiger winning a major, especially in the major drought that he has had.
Right.
I just don't see it.
I'll go with. I know it's either true or false, but I'll go with in the middle, just because there's.
You really pussyfooting around today, EDJ.
Hey, it's all right. Ray went in the middle on one last week, so
Yeah.
It's-
Don't
But
practice
but
line
it's
too
hard though, because I mean, golf isn't the main sport.
Sure
So-
the fuck isn't.
So,
But Tiger is the main player.
Well, yeah, he's the main player, but he's the main player in a sport that's not mainstream.
But Tiger is mainstream.
But it's
There's not too many athletes you can place above Tiger.
in 2019.
With his draw. I'm saying with his draw, there's not. You got LeBron James. Help me out, guys.
Kevin Durant, Steph Curry.
KD, yeah.
If LeBron's name isn't there, you're talking about Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, James Harden. I mean,
Harden, no.
You don't think Harden?
Draw.
We're just talking
draw.
about draw within. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you, but at the same time, I disagree because of golf. At the end of the day, I mean,
Tiger is bigger than golf, guys.
I get that. I'm not saying that, but
You're all alone.
I totally see what you're saying because I agree with you that Tiger is bigger than golf. But at the end of the day, how many people are going to tune in just because of Tiger? I don't think that's a huge.
This is the whole thing. It's going to be big for probably about 2 months, and then we're going to move on to the next thing.
But even tuning in, I'll watch the highlights. I'm not tuning in.
That's what
I'm
I'm
not
saying.
watching.
You're not, but there's millions of more people that's gonna tune in.
I don't think there's as many
If you're
people
on
as you
if you're
think there
talking about
is.
being on the back nine of the Masters and Tiger is at the lead or within a stroke of the lead, millions of people are going to be tuning in to watch that.
It'll cut to it. It'll cut to it to see if
Right.
he does it. But I mean, that'll be it.
But yeah, are you going off of like, yeah,
But
changing the channel for a minute to watch Tiger, or are you?
Don't people change the channel for a minute if the Super Bowl is good? I mean, ultimately people watch the Super Bowl, but
Yeah,
if
I
it's-
don't think there's a comparison there.
I'm not saying NFL to golf, but I'm saying the Masters is a big deal.
No, but I'm just saying from your perspective, are you talking about just flipping the channel for a few minutes to see Tiger, or do you mean literally tuning in to watch the Masters? And even if it's just a back nine, I'm just asking where you're coming from on that.
Just watching in general, watching Tiger in general. I think if he's on the back, that's when most people watch it anyway.
Right.
So I think if he's on the back nine and they're in the playoffs and he's within a stroke of the lead or has a chance to win, millions of people are tuning in to watch it.
I agree with you on that. I mean, I agree.
Okay.
And sorry to cut you off,
No,
EDJ,
it's
but if we're talking about just like Rowdy Ray said, we're gonna be on it for 2 weeks. How long were we on the Super Bowl? Not very long. This past Super Bowl, not very long.
Yeah, and it really was.
So we're talking about how big of a story is the event in the first place, right? Because Patriots and Rams wasn't really a great game. It wasn't really captivating for the audience. Tiger, if Tiger wins a Master after 11 years, you're talking about the most ultimate captivating thing to happen in sports Whether you like golf or not, you're like, yeah, that's dope. Tiger won.
Yeah, you know what? You got me. I'm gonna say true. as well.
It'll win an ESPY. We'll put it that way. It'll win an ESPY. It will. If he wins, he'll
All
win.
facts.
He'll win like what comeback player or whatever. I want to say false because not enough has happened yet to say it'll be true. I think we'll probably see something bigger at some point, but it'll be up there. I'll put it. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with false.
False.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a hard false.
Or false.
Why? Why again? What was your reason?
Why? Just fuck golf. That's
So you're being a troll and not putting in my base on anything.
I mean,
So we're gonna
I'm
go
just
to the
saying,
next.
I'm really arguing with a black man about golf. What has this come to? This is a new America.
Okay, moving on. Athletes suffering is not entertainment. True. or false?
Yo, keep that in, please, because, bruh, it's just the way you read the shit. Athletes suffer.
True or false? True or false? No, but like injuries, anything like that. Is that for your entertainment?
What
or
is the
that not
basis of
entertainment?
this question?
Okay.
What's the background? Where is
So-
this coming from?
This is coming from a little article that we posted on our Twitter that I was looking at earlier with an Auburn gymnast that suffered a knee injury, and she wants that people stop circulating the video saying that, you know, my pain is not for your entertainment.
So, the actual injury itself, no, that's not for our entertainment. But I think we're looking at the bigger picture. Is athletes suffering our entertainment? And that's true. For me, that's definitely true.
Very true.
Yeah. And then her name was Samantha Serio, I'm pretty sure.
And you said she's collegiate, right?
Collegiate, yeah. Auburn gymnast.
Which really sucks in her case because she'll get no monetary gain off of it. But
right.
for broadly speaking, most athletes, yes, their suffering is my entertainment for better or worse.
Yeah.
Because, they step out there every time a little dinged up, slightly injured, and they're putting themselves at serious risk of injury for my entertainment.
I mean, it just kind of seems like she's trying to get a little more attention out of it. Because, I mean, if LeBron came out with a groin injury and said, my pain is not for your enjoyment, that's stupid.
I'll be calling that man all types
exactly,
of bitches.
exactly.
Right.
It's
Just to put it plainly.
exactly. It's literally, you're an athlete. You're going to get hurt, especially a gymnast. You're going to get hurt, and probably pretty severely. So it's just kind of her in a way to keep herself relevant in her own story. Mm-hmm. It is too bad and it is unfortunate. I'm not knocking her injury by any means, but yes, you're going to get injured, and yes, we enjoy watching the game that you were injured in. Do we enjoy seeing you get injured? No.
Exactly.
I mean, I've seen Derek Johnson literally sit down on the ground twice, and I knew exactly what happened to him. And it sucked to watch him get injured, but I kept watching the game because it was entertaining.
Okay, but what about injuries that we watch over and over and over?
It's a learning. You learn from it. I mean, what was that guy's name from Louisville that literally
Kevin
had
Ware?
Yeah, I was
Kevin-
just
yeah.
about to say that. Yeah, because then didn't they start improving like the floorboards and all that for the
Oh,
hardwood?
yeah, and
But he's saying,
good
like,
things can
when it
happen, but
happens, the
what about-
video, like, when we play it over
What about
and
Joe
over.
Theismann? What about Anderson Silva?
Willie
What about
McGahee.
exactly? What about these moments that we're gonna watch over and over and over and over? I say true. I mean, that's for my entertainment. If I want to go watch Anderson Silva break his leg
Ooh.
37 times in a row, I should be able to go do that. If I go by Fight Pass, I can go do that.
And how many times did they play that during? Because we watched it live,
Exactly.
and how they
And
played
then they
that
constantly kept
over
playing
and
it.
over and over.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just part of being an athlete.
Yep.
Exactly.
It's a little thing I like to call charging into the game.
Facts.
Factoid.
Facts.
Yes,
Because, I mean, just like I was saying before, like, if I would have got slept in my fight, there's a video of me getting knocked
Oh,
the
we'd
fuck
all have it
out.
on our phones.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
That would have been a highlight.
And that sucks.
I'm
That
just being
sucks.
real about
But
it.
you know what I mean? At the end of the day, like, I signed up for that fight. I went out there and did it, and I got knocked out. I got to deal
anytime
with
you'd feel big about stuff, hold on one second. Here we
it.
go.
Exactly. Exactly. That's just something I'd have to deal with. That's okay.
Exactly. And then she should just take that as a learning curve. Like, oh, well, sometimes you get humbled. And it may not be, what you think is right, but fuck, it happened. It's
But
gonna
Rowdy
be-
Ray, everybody wants to have a TED Talk.
Well, Well, shit, she's got a platform. Use that motherfucker now.
Exactly. yeah, man.
She's got one now. We know her name because before.
But
this, we know her name.
maybe for her, it's the sport and the culture behind being a gymnast. Because you got to think, when they're practicing for Olympic trials or whatever, it's grueling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They go through a grueling process.
Well,
So maybe she's hinting at maybe some of the abuse and unnecessary tactics they go through as far as training. Maybe
I
say
think she
this.
could have. Oh, go.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
EJ. I was stepping on you.
I think she could have spun it a different way if that's what she was going with.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, I mean,
And it also may have just been the article too,
Right.
because you
That
know
too.
her statement
Yeah.
was she didn't want the video being circulated
Circulated.
anymore. Which at the end of the day, too, I also
You wouldn't
understand if I
want
would
it.
have, if Anderson Silva probably has a really hard time watching that clip of him kicking Weidman and breaking his
Damn
leg,
right.
you know. So I mean, I do understand that to a point, but at the same time, I feel like to say, don't watch that is kind of silly.
yeah, it's already out there. Sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially the world we live in 2019.
And
Like
to-
everything's a fucking gift.
For real.
Like,
And then to kind of like, go off of what Randy was saying, what sport isn't grueling? You know what
That's
I'm saying?
very
And
true.
I understand there are, varying degrees
There's
of
levels to
difficulty.
the shit.
Yeah, there is levels to the shit. But at the end of the day, like, you're going to pay, the iron tax, blood, sweat, tears.
So let me ask you. So since gymnasts is relatively women-dominated sports, they make the headlines as far as being a gymnast is concerned. Is there a double standard within that? Maybe do we care about their grueling tactics and culture behind that more because they're women, as opposed to the rest of the sports world because they're men?
And that
Does
could
that
be the
pop
angle,
up?
That could be the angle she's kind of, shooting for.
No,
like,
but I'm saying, what do you think? Do you see a double standard there? Is there a double standard? Like, do we care about not the abuse, but the grueling nature of their training because they're women, as opposed to the grueling training that men go through?
I'll say for myself,
Uh-huh.
no.
Okay.
Like I don't see any difference because I watch women MMA fighters and they have to go through the same type of camps as a male would, and there's no difference. They they train hard, they sweat, cry, bleed, the whole shebang. So I don't see any difference. Maybe the average American does, like, oh, maybe women shouldn't be putting themselves through that these little dainty figures. She knew what she was doing. This is what she likes.
She signed up for it.
Exactly. She enjoys the sport.
Right.
There's no reason to pursue it at a collegiate level, which is just a step below basically the pro level. There's no point pursuing that if this isn't what you really want.
Yeah, I agree with you, Roddy. Right. So that is a big false for everybody, right?
Across
Yeah.
the board.
All right. So moving on to robots will take over sports.
Ain't nobody gonna have a job in 20 years.
Nobody.
Nobody. Nobody is safe.
So
Nobody's safe.
the thing I seen on this was, I guess Toyota Motor Corp's robot called Q3. It computes as a three-dimensional image where the basket is using sensors on its torso, and it adjusts motors inside its arms and knees to give the shot the right angle and propulsion for a swish.
That's a real fancy way of saying flick of the wrist.
Yes. And I watched the video. He basically nailed a three from half court. Crazy. Steph Curry bot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think with as fantasy crazy as we become in sports, and robots can't, like, if they were to make the robots advanced enough, I don't think there would be minimum injury. So I think robots can take over a sport.
So you got
Not necessarily sports, but a sport. So I got true.
Well, hold on. What's the question? Will they or can they?
Well, it's true or
robots
false.
will take over sports.
Will take over.
So I got true.
I'm gonna go with a nice hard false for the simple fact, just trying to sustain something like that seems to be way less cost effective than having live humans. You get what I'm saying? Because I feel like that type of technology would be astronomically high. Then you would have to have software managers, maintenance. You know what I'm saying? Which you could. I feel like you would come out cheaper in the end with live human players and a couple trainers on staff.
But then what about all of the huge contracts You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
no,
I think that
that's what
almost,
I'm factoring in, because I'm thinking of that too. Like, you know, you've got a full staff to pay for a team, and then these ginormous contracts. You know,
Because at the end of the day, you're not gonna have to.
you won't
you
have
know,
to
you
pay
won't-
these robots,
yeah.
but that upfront fee, I don't think any of these owners would be willing to pony up that money upfront.
But see, I don't think the league would consist of traditional owners. I'm thinking more engineers. Like, you have your best engineers come out and craft these robots, like your Elon Musk, and I don't know
so
anybody.
like, so people from like MIT,
Yes,
these Ivy League
yes.
schools. Oh,
Yes.
that's an interesting take on it. I don't know if they would be able to have the grant money to, you know, do something of that
All
magnitude.
that money them colleges got.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
That's true. That's for them.
The government would have it though. Let me put on my tinfoil hat real quick.
I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
I gotta go with false. I mean, just what sport are they gonna take over? I mean, other than hockey.
That's what I wanted to ask you guys though. Like, what sport would you think they would take over?
Hockey,
if
I
they
guess,
could?
because I mean, at some point, I feel like people are going to find hockey too barbaric, and because we're kind of heading toward that direction anyway.
Yeah.
So for maybe hockey, I mean, just because it's a simple game of slamming people against the wall. So I could see that being the sport that they would take over, but at the same time, it's way more money than I think anyone would be willing to spend, and you can financially find a way to pay people a lot of money, especially in the world of sports that makes billions and billions and billions of dollars every year. So that's not really the issue that would run out of hand at some point. I don't think there would be any draw to it, and I think they're like that show, Robot Battle from like sci-fi, where people would just literally build robots that would saw the other robots. That's entertaining. But it's not a sport. It's just entertaining.
A lot of people look at it as a sport.
I mean,
Get out
Also,
of there.
that
gaming
too.
is a
but-
sport.
Yeah.
now.
Also, that's actually brings up an interesting point. Is it even sport if it's not? If it's a robot?
If they're playing football, it's a sport. If they're playing whatever sport, if they're playing a sport,
Just to kind of throw this in there too, I think a sport that they could probably take over relatively quickly would be like tennis.
I think golf.
I think
Definitely.
I
golf.
think golf because you already have
Yeah.
the handheld caddy
Yep.
where you can program the course to it
Yep.
and
But yeah.
distance from and all that
And
good
then,
stuff.
because look, it would be low cost, especially on the golf or the tennis front, because you only need two, as
Yeah.
opposed to what is it, 52-man roster
for
football?
the NFL. Yeah. Well, I mean, you wouldn't need a 52-man
True.
roster, really, would you?
You would probably need
Maybe.
at least 25.
But then also you think about in contact sports, would they be able to hold up?
Yeah, and that's the main thing, because like that's what I'm factoring in. I'm thinking of like maintenance,
Yeah.
constant
Wear
cost
and
of
tear.
cost of like new parts and
And
whatnot.
and we're assuming that they have actual normal human functions,
Right.
right? And they can run like humans, and they can throw like humans.
Well, I mean,
And-
it would take 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, that's
to-
true. Because I was just about to say the robot we saw stand stationary.
Yeah, he
and
couldn't
shoot a
dribble
shot.
or nothing
So
like that.
yeah, especially in the NFL, what are we gonna be with robots? I think that we would also watch it would have to be an evolution, just like humans playing the game. Because I mean, look at how the game was played in 1920 or 19 whatever.
Yeah, in like
And-
the 1940s. And
Exactly. So compare that to a robot just now, getting some real momentum, real legs underneath them. I'm gonna say false. I don't think robots will ever take over sports, and I wouldn't want to watch that. Why? I don't give a fuck about. It could be 11-on-11 football. I don't care if it's a bunch of robots. I do not care about any of these robots. They're not people. There's no story behind them. There's so much more. You're not gonna get, Randy, you're a huge D Wade fan. You're not gonna get behind a fucking robot the way you're behind D Wade or any other athlete that you may be tied to in general. You're not gonna get that from these robots. I mean, what you're gonna get? Oh, this robot 72 built from MIT, finished his 7-year career off of
Hey,
a...
if his parts was made here in Kansas City, I'll probably get behind him. I'm gonna keep it a whole village.
I mean, I feel you. Okay.
See,
Okay.
there goes the
I
case.
mean, I feel you, but at the same time, I'm not going to get behind it like a local high school kid that came up through the ranks and is playing with
I
whatever
think,
said team.
my bad, but I think the biggest draw of it would be the man versus machine element.
Now that would be interesting. Well, that was something that I want to bring up is, would robots ever actually take over? Like, you could say, the NFL is still going to be the NFL in 50 years, I think. But could you also have a robot league on top of that? You know what I'm saying? Like, what would it take to integrate? Or would robots ever take over, like, robots playing in the NFL, the NBA, the NHL?
No. I don't think that would happen. I think it would have to be a sub league.
Yeah.
Like a sub little.
I think the only time you could actually do it is if it was a non-contact sport. So, like, i.e., golf or tennis.
And having
Right.
like a
Because then,
one-on-one.
then you could definitely have a man versus the machine on in
basketball.
tennis. There's varying points of contact.
Hey, bro.
I mean, barely. I mean,
Knee bruises, bro, in basketball.
Bro,
You gonna knee
especially-
bruise a robot?
Bro, take a
Bro,
hard
robot
shot.
if
hit you
he
in the
touch
knee?
you, it's a foul.
So here is Levi being a hater. I mean, Papa Shoulder, he's being a hater.
But
I mean, what am I hating on? Just
and you gonna drive on a robot? I'm not. Exactly.
The robot got to back up. Robot can't just stand there or it's a foul.
It's a lot more. See,
Good thing is you can pop the trunk on a robot when he hard foul you. Next topic.
All right. So our last one for true or false: boxers are held higher than MMA fighters.
Big true.
yep.
And I think it goes back to the same way there are baseball purists and traditionalists, there are boxing purists and traditionalists, and it gets held, and as a result, it gets held in a high regard. MMA, UFC, it's relatively new still. And so I don't think it's garnered that same respect that boxing has had over the years.
Well, MMA is literally as old as us, 25 years old.
Yep. The UFC
93.
is literally our age.
Yeah.
And it
So-
takes a long time for little bro to get
Yep.
respect.
Yeah, that's facts. I totally agree. This is definitely a true statement. At the end of the day, though, I think it's really, it's kind of silly, because I think MMA fighters definitely, you've got all the tools compared to a boxer that just knows one tool on the realm of fighting. So I think definitely when you look at, if you're taking a heavyweight fighter versus a heavyweight boxer, I mean, in any realm of combat, as in like on the street or anything like that, I'm taking the MMA fighter 10 out of 10 times.
But yeah, no, I really agree with what you're saying. As in, I would definitely rather take the MMA fighter over the boxer. And I think 20, 30 years down the line, we're going to have a completely different opinion about it. We're going to say, oh, the greatest, heavyweight MMA, mixed martial artist of all time is going to beat the shit out of the greatest boxing heavyweight of all time. And, everybody will know that as an undisputable fact.
In terms of them being able to use all of their skills and the boxer being only able to use their skills.
All you got to do is take them down.
Yeah, because
You
the
know what I
boxer
mean?
is so limited. You know what I'm saying? They're just great with, one aspect of, the full spectrum of MMA. You know what I'm saying?
And this is without the boxer being able to train in the MMA, or how does that? How is
right now we're
it's
just
just kind of
going-
like, it's low key like on some like, what if a tiger fought a bear type shit.
Right,
you know what
right.
I'm saying?
And I mean, even then it's still, but I think definitely it's true just to go off of, look at Conor McGregor. I mean, he had to go to boxing to get his big payday.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean, just off that, I mean,
Yep. It still goes to show how, who still, runs the roost.
I think it's true, but I think it's trending in the other direction. I think we'll get to a point where it's, the opposite. But I also feel like the UFC isn't as big as it was 10 years ago.
really,
Just to me, it felt like...
Do you feel like the product is more watered down now?
No, I feel like more common people talked about the fights that happened the night before than they do now.
Really?
Nah, I completely disagree.
Well, hold on, because I feel like the bigger names were in their prime then.
right?
So that may
I
have
see what
something
you're
to do
saying.
with it.
And with what we were talking about earlier about Floyd and boxing and how boxing is getting back to a point where we're seeing boxing on, just regular TV and whatnot. I somewhat agree with you to that point because, at that time you got Anderson Silva, you've got George St. Pierre, you've got huge
Chuck Liddell is
names.
still around
BJ
somewhere.
Penn.
But at
BJ
the same
Penn.
time, I think that's more of like a hardcore fan opinion.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's a lot more casuals now than there
Yeah,
was
there,
10 years ago.
right, there are. And I mean, it has grown. I
Right.
mean, there's no doubt it has grown. But I think it was at its popular height peak of, did you see that?
Right.
During then, because I mean, there probably wasn't a fight we missed, and Applebee's used to play them all the time.
Right.
And then Applebee's stopped playing them because people would get in fights after the fights.
Fights at the fights.
Yeah,
It's always a fact. Plus, you know what though? I don't even think the UFC is even close to reaching its apex at this point. They still haven't found their guy to transcend the sport. You know what I'm saying? They thought they might have found it in Conor McGregor, but he has too many stains on him. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's taking too many losses to, be the guy. So I think the guy is just somewhere out there in the wings, like, they're Michael Jordan, they're Tiger Woods. You know what I'm saying?
I 100% disagree with you with that.
I would think the guy is John Jones.
Well,
When-
but
No.
Conor McGregor has literally already transcended the sport, though.
Well, that too.
Kinda.
What do you mean, kind of?
Like, he
got a fucking boxing match with Floyd
He
Mayweather.
has, but I'm saying, like, the guy that's going to consistently
Floyd
keep the
Mayweather
sport.
transcended the sport.
Of what?
UFC.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yup.
Get the fuck out of here. That is 110% false.
Hold on. He's on to something. Because without that big boost from Floyd, what is Conor McGregor?
Whoever the top boxer would have been at that time around him.
I don't think so.
It wouldn't have had that same effect without Floyd.
Sure wouldn't have. Dog.
It ain't Floyd though.
It ain't Floyd, though.
I don't know. I feel like that's debatable because you've got a personality like Conor that transcended MMA anyways. Everybody was learning who Conor was before the Floyd fight. That came in after the fact that he had reached his peak.
I think it's fair to say Conor used Floyd's blueprint though.
Oh, fuck yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Come on now.
Well, yeah, everybody copies. I mean, and then before that,
It
Floyd
basically
Mayweather-
goes to
yeah.
Ali.
Yeah. And I mean, everybody copied after Ali, Ric Flair. I mean,
Right.
Ric Flair style. I mean, everybody knows that. But if we're going to give credit to where credit is due, I mean, MMA kind of transcended a lot of things. I mean, look at Ronda Rousey in the WWE. I mean,
Yeah.
she's made a lot of money doing that. And I mean, she just came from UFC, and I think that's kind of polarized her as well. And even though she got knocked out horrendously twice, and it was extremely funny to watch.
48 seconds.
Especially her, especially her after fight interviews. Because
What fight interviews?
well, yeah.
Shit.
But after, like I mean, on the Ellen show when she cried,
Oh, yeah.
because it's just
Oh,
like
shit, she cried on that one,
she cried
Yeah.
because Ellen brought up Holly Holm, and I think she showed the video to.
That's cold.
PTSD like a motherfucker.
That's cold.
He said, I got my ass beat like that? Hold up, that's me?
She really had to watch herself on the summer jail board, bro.
Hey, she probably hey,
That's cold.
I mean, to be fair, she probably doesn't remember.
well,
Oh.
hey, she probably came out the cage and her coach told her she won.
You right.
You know what I mean?
Edwards was so far up hit her ass.
Oh, Jesus, that was part of the downfall. Of
Oh
her
yeah,
career.
that literally.
I think EDJ brings up a good point with that because I think that MMA is big enough at this point that anybody that becomes a big enough star can transcend the sport. Because, like he said, Ronda. I mean, even after those 2 huge losses, I mean, she's doing just fine for herself in WWE, and people are still talking about her.
But she had to go somewhere else. Her run was kind of short to me.
That
when
is
she got
true.
on top.
But they
But that
still,
proves
but they
the
still
point.
knew the name.
That proves the point. She's transcending the sport.
But so does longevity not count in UFC?
That's kind of where I'm at because I was just
Yeah.
like, you had these guys who were the faces of these companies for years.
But we're talking about guys though. When female UFC became popular when? Because of who?
That's true.
All
That's
right.
true.
That's-
Well, and not to mention what we were talking about earlier about boxing is MMA isn't the same. If you lose, that doesn't discredit you at all. You lost to because you're fighting the best of the best.
So them losses by Ronda Rousey didn't take steam off her career.
I mean, it did, but at the same time, she's still the same star.
And then-
it doesn't take. I don't think that it takes away from her star hugely.
And then I'll say this: is Conor still the same Conor after losing to Khabib in such a dominant fashion?
Well, he lost with a broken foot, so it doesn't matter now, right?
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying, this is just news that just came out. They literally
it just
saying
now came
he
out.
had a broken foot. I mean, I think it's bullshit, but
Man,
I'm
he
just,
said he had a messed up shirt. Everybody say they got a messed up something when they lose.
oh fuck yeah. I mean,
what?
and the fact that it came
Anderson Silva said he had a broke rib when he fought Chael Sonnen the first time.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's true
True
or
or
false,
not?
but
Exactly. Like
I think if he had a broken rib, he probably broke it in the middle of the fight. but-
exactly. That's when he probably broke the rib. Them body punches was
Yeah.
eating him. But that's a whole nother topic. But
So I think it just goes back to kind of what we were talking about boxing. When you lose in boxing, I mean, it takes away from you in a big level. But in MMA, I mean, I don't think that it does. Even now, I don't think Conor's star is as dimmed as what Brandon Gray.
I was asking. I didn't say it was as dimmed. I'm just
To me, it is though. Just the casual fan, from a casual fan's perspective, to me, Conor McGregor is a little bit stained out here.
Really?
In my opinion, that's just my
You know what
opinion.
I'm saying?
Is it because of his, in cage fighting, or is it because of his actions outside of
I don't care about his actions in the world because
So you're just strictly talking in his
yeah,
music.
because combat fighters always do some bullshit outside the ring or whatever.
They're kind of
octagon.
just naturally erratic beings.
Yeah.
Well,
that CTE be taking a toll.
Well, that and when you, I mean, that's very true though. That's very true, and not to mention, I mean, what you do for a living is literally beating another man's ass. And if you constantly beating another man's ass, ain't nobody gonna tell you shit. I don't care what
And
anybody
it takes
has
some
to say.
crazy to do it.
Exactly.
You gotta be crazy.
Hell yeah.
You're right. There's a certain level of crazy you got to be to lock yourself in a cage with a man from 15 to 25 minutes and tell him beat my ass or I'm beating your ass.
Yeah.
Exactly. You gonna tell John Jones not to do something?
Right.
You know what? I mean, if I got a pistol on me, yeah. I'm keeping the whole bill. I have to.
He would whoop your ass and then hold that pistol in front of your
if
face.
I'm 20 feet away from him, I don't give a.
He can reach you from 20 feet away. Have you seen how long his arms are?
Exactly, yeah. That's why I said 20. If I was in 10 feet, I'd be like, I'm probably fucked. But yeah, 20 feet, I'm busting Josh Jones' ass. Tap. Are you calm, sir? Oh, God, bro. And I'm going to ask for a picture after I shoot him.
All right, so we all got true on that. Boxers are held higher than
Yeah,
MMA
man.
fighters. All right.